Hey, I'm Reggie McNeal. I'm with the Leadership Network. I'm the leadership specialist here for Missional Renaissance. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. In the 9 minutes that I have to tell the world what it is I want the world to know, if I just had 9 minutes, this is what I would say. It's about what I'm about to say. It's about what I think the missional church is. I think missional church is redundant, of course, as a term. If the church were being missional, we wouldn't have to use that phrase because that's what the church is all about. But here's how I characterize the missional church. And I'm hoping that it can give you some language, a way to communicate, a way to convene people around what this thing is so that you can talk about actually how you can engage it yourself. I think the missional church is the people of God partnering with Him in His redemptive mission in the world. It's the people of God partnering with God in His redemptive mission in the world. Now, there are 4 parts of that, and I think every one is very important. The first is the people of God. I think the idea of the church being a who instead of a what changes the whole conversation. I mean, for centuries, we've been considering the church as a what. It's at the corner of 3rd and Main. It's what I belong to it. I go to it. I support it. It needs my help. I write checks to it. We hire staff to run it. But it's an it. It's a what. It's a discussion. And all the discussions that start with church as a what start with stuff about structure and organization and all that. This is not the New Testament notion. If you start with the discussion of church as a what, you just don't get to the idea of church as a who. If you start with church as a who, you can get to the what to reflect the who, but it rarely works the other way around. See, I think thinking of the church as the people of God, which is a biblical notion, by the way. Laus theus, you know, those of you who are biblical scholars, it picks up from the whole Old Testament idea of Israel, and now that's transferred over to the church, you and me. Then it's a relationship with God that's very special, and it's something that He created. It's not something we create, and it helps us begin to think of church not in a way of a church, a church, a church, a church. In fact, you won't find anywhere. My good friend Eric Swanson pointed this out to me. You won't find anywhere in the New Testament designation of church smaller than a city. And so it's the church at, Corinth or Laodicea. It's not a church, a church, a church. That whole congregational modality that has church as a what is one of the reasons that we are so still stunted in our own growth here when we hear about Pentecost going on in other parts of the world where church is primarily a who. I think if we think of church as a who, then we begin to understand that you are the church. I'm the church. You're not all the church. I'm not all the church. But everywhere I am, the church is. That allows us to move into an incarnational modality that allows for a much broader bandwidth of what we think the Christian, what the church looks like. We're going to still have big old Targets and Walmarts and big box stores. But, we're going to have a lot more boutiques, too, and we're going to have a lot of online kinds of presence. We've got missional Christians everywhere they are incarnating Jesus and being the church. And so all of those strategies would help us really, that designation just helps us think about how can our megachurches have 100 missional communities of folks who never show up? Or how can you think about planting not a church, but a network of missional communities in your neighborhood that may never come together or who do come together once a month, or whatever the expression is. In fact, once you think of church as a who, it's kind of like one of the guys that's president of a well-known company in our country, Hobby Lobby. Steve Green's a part of our Missional Renaissance leadership community. He went home and started a church at Hobby Lobby because that's where people already were. See, that's thinking like church is a who. So the people of God. Now, we have a very distinct who-ness. We are the people of blessing. But I only have 9 minutes, so I can't talk about what all that means. I give you all those great examples of what that means. But we have a job to do. It's to bless the world. And once we get that, it opens up all kinds of conversations. And it opens up all kinds of ways that we can actually be the people of God. Now, there's a second thing. It's the people of God partnering with Him. And my clock just went black here, so I have no idea how much time we've got. You can call in. Of course, I won't be here, and we won't have any idea how much time we've actually... Oh, you have 4 minutes left to enjoy this. my trusty assistant here. So here's the deal. The people of God are partners with him. I don't know who said it first, wish I had, but the church doesn't have a mission. The mission has a church. We don't own the mission. The mission predates the church. The mission is God's mission. It starts in the garden, for crying out loud, when God comes looking for Adam, and that's just the heart of God to reach people. And so it's all about being sent. It's all about being partners, but that is our partnership. And I go right back to Genesis 12. Again, what is the partnership all about? Oh, it's so we can bless the world. We have the responsibility of nobody else in the world has. We have the possibility that no one else has, the privilege that no one to bless the world. And so everywhere I go, I try to help people say, go bless 3 people this week. Make sure, intentional acts of blessing. Ask people a question, how can I ask God to bless you? And just see what happens with the conversations and what happens when God gets a chance to show up and show off. Now, so it's the people of God partnering with him, because it's his, not ours. We don't create the mission, all that stuff, and then ask him in his redemptive mission. That means that everything that sin broke, God is addressing through his redemptive efforts. That's why we can, again, to use that metaphor, we can expand the bandwidth of what we think we ought to be dealing with. The church needs to be dealing with issues of social justice, just like we dealt with issues of reconciliation between God and man and personal salvation. We need to be dealing with issues of the poor and hunger and all of that stuff. Whatever's on the heart of God that's sin affected, that is proper for us to be thinking about how we're going to address. And so it's critical that and I think we're seeing this all over. That's why we're seeing it all over. It's finally the missional church understands it's not just an external focus, but it's a redemptive focus. It's not just serving. It's about bringing intentionality of being the blessings into all of those relationships as we serve, so that we're representing God as his people. And then it's always in the world. That last phrase is very important. Church people, we think that we're the point. God, we're not the point. God didn't, even once we move into an incarnational modality, even the nature of our gatherings changes, even the nature of our conversations changes. And people ask me all the time, so what's the point if we're not the point? And again, the point is we are to be faithful to our mission so that God builds his kingdom. And that's always being done beyond us. The Bible is full. Abraham is taught how to tithe about Melchizedek. He's not part of the line. Moses is helped with a wife and a job and everything by Jethro. He's not part of the line. Jonah's told to go preach to the Ninevites. They're not part of the line. It's always, and Jesus said there are going to be people coming in sitting down in the kingdom and not from Abraham. It's always beyond us, God's work in the world. But he's inviting us to come out and play with him. And so that's why it's not so God so loved the church that he gave his only begotten, but God so loved the world. That's why an external focus is not a fad. It's a way of being in the world. It means that everywhere the church is already planted, where you already are, that's your place to bless that world. And that world is who Jesus came for and is counting on reaching and blessing through you. So the missional church that you're a part of, that I'm a part of, is the people of God partnering with him in his redemptive mission in the world. And I just think if we got that, I think the world would be a better place. I think if we get that and operate on it, we will be actually helping to answer the prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Let's go.